Hi everyone, Giant Size here, otherwise known as Chris. Today we're doing something a little different. So I wanted to create a TFT guide for beginners just because I've found that a lot of the TFT guides that are out there can be a little confusing. They gloss over a lot of the most basic things and they dive right into kind of beginner strategy and that sort of thing. So in this guide, I want to talk about the very basics, the building blocks of the game, because I'm going to be uploading some TFT videos to the channel here, and I want you as a viewer or as a player to be more comfortable with the game and know what's going on. Okay, so let's start with the basics. TFT stands for Teamfight Tactics. It's a video game put out by Riot Games, who makes League of Legends, and it uses the League of Legends world and champions and things like that, but it's a different type of game. It's an auto chess game. So what auto chess is where you have kind of a board, like a chessboard, and you have champions or pieces that you place on the board, but then they automatically fight for you. You don't have to really control them when they fight. All you do is decide where on the board you're going to put them, and then they fight. Okay? So it's a game of economy and strategy and building a strong team, and you're playing against other players, 7 other players, so there's 8 of you, and it's kind of the last one surviving at the end of the game. Once you whittle down the health of all the other players, wins. So we're going to go through the kind of the building blocks and the basics. So on your screen, what you can see here is an example of a layout in TFT of what the board could look like. Now, my board does have a skin on it, so that's why you see the spaceship in the top left, and it's kind of this grayish purple color. So you can get free skins for your board to make it look different just by playing. So a basic board would not look like this, but you could very quickly unlock something like this. So what you're going to notice is there's a lot going on. So we're going to break down everything slowly. So what we're going to talk about is everything we see here to start with. So, like I said, 8 players, we start at 100 health. We can see on the side here, on this right, all 8 players, little pictures for their names. Ours is the one that's bigger, without a name. And you can see their health. So this person's still at 100, we're at 92, and so on and down until the bottom person is at 53. Okay? You can see the board, so that's this area. You can see the hexagonal spaces. These are where you place your champions. And you can see I have a few champions out there right now. And then the other side of the board is where your enemy's champions will show up once you go to fight them. Okay? So each spot can hold 1 champion, and you're going to slowly get champions to fill in more of this board. And you're only going to get, in most games, just to keep it simple, up to 9 champions. And that kind of depends on your level. So for every level you can have 1 champion on the board. So you can see in the bottom down here, and we're going to go over this more in detail, but I'm level 5, so I can have 5 champions out. Okay? So let's talk about how you get champions. So down in the very bottom here is your champion shop. So right now, you can see these 5 champions are available to be bought. Okay? So this is where they're going to show up. And we'll go over their costs and their kind of rating and that kind of thing a little bit later. But just know this is where champions show up to be bought. And every round, a new shop will show up. It'll refresh. And it'll have different options to buy. Now, let's say we were on our turn, just to explain to what more of this board does, and we didn't like these and we wanted to buy something else. We could pay 2 gold and use this refresh button to get 5 possibly different champions to basically re-roll these champions. So you can still get some of the same ones, but it's more likely you're going to get new stuff. To level, we either just level up passively. So how this leveling system works, and we'll go in more detail later, but you're going to level up by getting experience. You get experience by winning fights or just surviving a round. Or you can buy it with gold. Economy's a big thing in this game, so we'll get into that. But you can see here, right above the shop, the number 31. That's how much gold I currently have. So that shows you where your gold is. This spot next to it with these numbers in white, green, blue, purple, and yellow or orange are the percentage chance of that level of champion showing up in your shop. So we're going to go over levels of champions later, but right now you can see all our shop people are this kind of grayish white color. So there's a 45% chance we'll get grayish white right now at level, whatever level we're at. This isn't exactly right because, yeah, don't worry about that. So 45% chance right now. Okay, what else do we have? Here is what is known as our bench. This is where we keep all our champions that we currently have but are not on the board. And you may be asking yourself, why do you have multiples of the same champion? Especially since we're looking out on the board, see this champion that kind of looks like a mermaid? And we see we have another one here and another one here. Well, if you look closely, this one has this sort of bronze arrow next to her health bar. And this one has a silver, as does the one on the board. So what happens with champions in TFT is if you buy one, they're a 1-star champion. But if you get 3 of the same champion, they upgrade and they become a 2-star champion like this one. Now, if you can get 3 of the 2-star champions, so we have 2 right now, so you need 9 total of the 1-stars. So if you get 3 of the 2-stars, they become a 3-star champion, and that's pretty much the max they can become normally. So 3-star is really what you're aiming for. So that's why you're buying multiples of the same champion and keeping them on your bench. So your bench has limited spots, but you're going to be gathering champions. You can sell champions off your bench that you don't want anymore, buy new ones from the shop, that kind of thing. All right, continuing on, explaining the layout over here. We have our item bench. You can see there's 2 items sitting on our bench, as well as our little legend is what they're called. They're your character in the game. So it shows my health bar above, shows my name, have a big little legend. You use them to run around the board and gather items when they drop and things like that. Above this is the gold markers. So remember we had 31 gold in the bottom. That's why it shows 3 gold markers here. So you can have up to 5 spots, and this just keeps track of your iterations of 10 gold. Because every 10 gold that you have in the bank at the end of a round, you get an extra bonus gold. And we're going to go over that in economy. So that's more complicated, but it just shows you kind of a rough estimate of how much gold you have instead of looking down here. And this one on the right that's empty will be your opponent. So when you fight them, you'll get to see how much they have. The other most important thing is over on this far left here, we have the area that shows all your traits that are currently active on the board. So a couple ways to look at this. Traits we're going to go over as well, so just so you know. But traits kind of show that right now we have 3 enlightened champions out and 3 mage champions out. And you can see underneath the mage, it goes 3, 6, 9. So we have the first bonus, 3. To get the next bonus, we would need 6 mage champions. And to get the final bonus, we would need 9. Really hard. Enlightened, it goes 2, 4, 6. So we have 2. We're actually sitting at 3. So we don't get any more bonus by having 3 until we get to 4. Okay, so that's what these numbers mean, and we're going to go over that more. The ones underneath that are gray, it just shows, so like Mystic, we have 1 out of 2. So we do have 1 Mystic on the board, but we don't have enough to get a bonus from having Mystic. Okay, so that's going to sound really complicated to begin with, but I just wanted to show you where on the board everything exists. And there's more detail for each of these sections. Before we move on, one last thing, I guess the stage track is at the very top. This shows you what level you're at, 3-2, and shows you kind of on this visual indicator what's going on. And we're going to go over that. Okay, let's talk about champions. So we talked about different costs and levels of champions, so that can be really confusing. Earlier in the game, you're going to start off with these 1-cost champions. See how they have 1 gold in the bottom right? That means they cost 1 gold to buy. Later in the game, you'll start to get 2-cost champions, 3, 4, and 5, which are the most expensive. They're all given a different color scheme to make it easy to tell. So 1 cost champions will always be gray, 2 will be green, blue, purple, and yellow or orange. Okay? This chart in front of you is going to look really confusing, and it's more of a cheat sheet to use when you're trying to play. But just to give you an idea of how leveling works, we won't go into great detail here, but this shows you the chance of rolling in your shop, or of getting in your shop, that level of champion at each level. So at level 1, you're only going to see level 1 champions, 1 cost champions. Level 2, you're only going to see 1 cost champions. But at level 3, you have a 25% chance of seeing 2 cost champions. And so on and so forth. This other column is for chosen champions. We'll talk about that later. That's unique to this set. So TFT has been through 4 sets now. It's on its 4th set. But everything else always stays the same, the basics. Chosen is a unique feature for this set. So I'm not going to confuse you with it. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but not in great detail. Okay? So, big takeaways. 5 different levels of champions, costing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 gold. Makes it easy. Later you go in the game, the better chance you have of getting high level champions compared to lower ones. Talk about leveling. We talked about XP. So over on the right here, you can see to get from level 1 to level 2, it's not going to cost you anything. But then you need 2 XP, 6 XP, 10 XP. So you can see how it starts to go up each level. And this isn't like a maximum. It's not like you start over. You have to get another 6, and then another 10, and then another 20. So it becomes harder and harder to level up. Takes longer, right? So you can kind of think of that curve of level requirements going up, so that you can visualize how over the course of the game, you're not going to level up as fast. It's pretty common with video games. That's how that works. So it shouldn't be too familiar. I just wanted to put it there so you had a visual indicator. And I'm gonna include a link in the description to this video of the cheat sheet that I use when I'm playing TFT that includes this graph as well as some other images that we will see in this slideshow, so that you can have it yourself sitting beside you on a second monitor or something. It helps a lot. Okay, so we talked about traits. So remember, we talked about enlightened, and we talked about mage. These are these examples I have here. So now we can see them in more detail. Now on our board layout right here, if in the game you were to hover over the mage, then it would pop out and show you more details. This is the mage. This is what it would show you. So remember, we talked about how we had 3 of them, which gives us this bonus. Mages cast twice and have modified spell power. 80% of their total spell power. So we'll go over what spell power is when we get to the items, but basically mages are going to cast all their abilities twice, which is great, instead of once, which is normal, and they're going to have more damage. Well, they get slightly less damage, but they get to cast twice. And as you go up, they get more damage. Okay? So we won't go into all of these different origins and classes which make up the traits. That's more of an advanced video and something you'll learn just by playing and trying things and by watching videos. But instead, I want you to be aware that every champion has at least 2 traits. They always have at least 1 origin and at least 1 class. Now they can have 3. Some have 3, but if you look on the side here, we see a Fortune Mage Annie. So how to use this chart if we're going forward? I would look down until I see Fortune, and then I would look over until I see Mage, there's Annie. Okay, so that tells me that when I see Annie's picture, I know she's a Fortune and a Mage. Now where it gets confusing is, for example, in Ninja, Shen, this purple picture, shows up under Adept, but also shows up under Mystic. This tells me Shen is a 3-trait champion. He's a Ninja, Adept, and a Mystic. Okay, so this is going to look really confusing. This shows all the champions, but I just wanted you to be aware that there's a bunch of different traits that you can get, and when you're playing and when you're watching, you're just going to see them being combined and building teams out of them. And really what you're trying to do with the traits is that's how you make your team. So you're going to be trying to get these bonuses, because you could just put 9 champions out there that don't synergize and don't get any bonuses, and you're not going to do well. You really want to get bonuses. So the more mages we have out, the better, right? The stronger they get. The more enlightened we have out, the better. Okay? So that's what traits are. I'm not going to go into the super detail because I think it's going to overwhelm you. But one thing we will talk about is the chosen. Chosen are only for this set 4. This is an example of a chosen. You see it has this purple picture in the top right. It also has, it's hard to see here, 2 little purple stars, indicating that when you buy it, it's a 2-star champion right away. That's why it costs 6 instead of Annie's normal 2. Costs, because you're paying for 3 Annies basically. And it has this little purple symbol next to the mage trait. What this means is that when this champion is on the board, she counts as 2 mages instead of 1, which helps us to get these bonuses up. So chosen, how they work is chosen have a chance to show up in your shop as long as you don't have a chosen bot. And when they do show up, it can be any champion that you can get at that time in your shop. And for the most part, any of their traits can be chosen. So Annie could have shown up as a fortune chosen, right? And had the 2 symbol here instead of the mage. So it'll be one of those that gets a buff. Okay, so chosen are really important in set 4 because they help you get stronger faster. And they get little bonuses. So this Annie will be a stronger champion than a regular 2-star Annie, which will get a slight buff. Okay, so chosen really help dictate which way you want to build your team that game. The tricky part is that if you have a chosen bot, and we'll go back to the board to talk about this, if you have a chosen bot, this symbol, this purple symbol, will lock, and you won't be able to find any more chosen in your shop. So it's really kind of planning around, taking that risk of, do I get this chosen now when it's available, or but then not be able to see anymore? Or do I hope for a better chosen later? Do I sell a chosen to try to get a better one? So a lot of options. That's all part of strategy, not basics. I just wanted you to know chosen exist, and they really help define what you're going to do with your team. So lots of champions, lots of traits and classes and origins, which are their traits. You're trying to combine classes and origins to create a good team comp. Okay. Items. So items are core to TFT. Throughout all of TFT, pretty much, all these items have stayed the same, the basic items. So that this is a grid that shows all the items and what they make. These basic items on the outside have pretty much stayed the same. But the ones inside that they make have changed slightly. So they don't change constantly. Some have been the same forever, but they do make changes in between sets. But basically what you need to know about an item is you get items by fighting in PvE challenges in the game. So PvE stands for person versus environment. So you're not playing against another player. You're playing against the computer. And you're going to get in a fight with creatures in the game where you just put your board out and they fight them, and if you defeat them you can get items, and they're pretty easy to defeat once you start to play. You get items, and then you're going to have to choose, because you always get these basic items, you're going to choose how to combine them to create these kind of upgraded items. So what do items do? Because this is really important. So if we look at this item here, it's called Luden's Echo. Now, if we find it on the board, we can see it right here. It's made from a tear, a blue tear. And this is called a rod, a pink rod. Make this item. So, on their own, the pink rod gives plus 15 spell power. And the blue tear gives plus 15 mana. Okay, so so when you make a created item, it combines their 2 stats, so you get plus 15 and plus 15, but then it also gives you an ability. So Luden's Echo gives an ability. So let's talk about the different stats. So offensive stats, you're going to see spell power. Think of this as magic. It's magic damage. Okay, it really affects when the champion uses their spell. So how champions work is they're going to attack with just at what's called an auto attack. It's a very basic attack, does a little bit of damage until they get enough mana to cast their spell. Once they cast their spell, something big happens. And that's what spell power affects, is it makes their spell stronger. Okay, so mana on Loon's Echo makes it so they have more mana to start with, meaning they get to cast their spell sooner. Okay, so there's spell power and there's mana. There's also attack damage. Attack damage, which basically means their auto attacks, their little attacks are going to do more damage. There's attack speed, they're going to attack faster. Okay, that's what this little symbol is, plus 15. Okay, we also have armor. That's what this symbol is, this little armor. Right, that's what this one gives you. We have magic resist. That's what this one gives you. So armor helps you against physical attacks. Magic resist helps you against magical attacks. The belt gives health. So just more health for your champion. The glove is the most confusing. That's down here. So the glove on its own gives this, which is a 10% dodge, that you'll dodge a basic attack, and a 10% crit. So what a crit is, when you attack with a 10% crit chance, 10% of the time, you're going to crit and you're going to do more damage. Okay? So it gives you more damage sometimes. And then 15 mana because Hand of Justice is made with a tear and a glove. So these individual, what they're called are components, these individual components are weaker than a combined item. Okay? And if we look back here, you can see this champion has 2 combined items on them. So you can have up to 3 items. So if you just filled her and all she had, basically how it works is you'll take one item, pick it up, drop it on them, and then the next item you add will automatically combine and create a combined item. And they can have up to 3 combined items on them. Okay? So you want to plan out what items you're going to use, and you also, if you want to be careful, let's say you want to put this bow and this shield on her, but you don't want them to combine. There's no way to actually do that. You can't put them on separately. They would automatically combine. So you got to be really careful with that. So items. A couple noticeable mentions for items that aren't normal, because this is just going to take practice to learn what each item does. There's a whole bunch. Here, this looks like more than there is because they're all duplicated. There's a whole bunch, though. The spatula is special. So the golden spatula does nothing on its own. It doesn't do anything. But when it's combined with other items, it makes an item that makes a champion have a new trait. So a divine, well, let's use mage, because we were talking about mage. So if you were to make this mage cap out of a spatula and a tear, you would make this mage item. Any champion you put that on now is a mage and counts as a mage for you. Okay? So there's a bunch of these that can be made with the spatula. Another thing is Nico's Help. This is a special little item you can get. So what Nico's Help does is it's a disposable item. So you put it on a champion and then it disappears. And it makes another copy of that champion. So if you're having a really hard time leveling up a champion and getting them to a 3-star, you can use Nico's Help to get another copy of them to make it easier. Okay? So items can be very complicated. There's a whole strategy game about which items you can make, and should you have to make them for that team comp, or should you be trying to make them use a different team comp based on the items you have. Some items are better than others, and some work better on specific champions. So there's a lot. That's a lot of depth. The depth of League of Legends, or not League of Legends, of TFT is in the item system and kind of the economy system. So we won't go super deep into items, but just know that's what these are. They're items. We'll go over a bit more how to get them when we talk about stages. So I wanted to show you what the start of a TFT game looks like. So this is what's known as the carousel. So all 8 players start in their little circles, and we have these champions in the middle that move. They walk in a circle, each with an item on them. And we have this kind of wall that appears. So the first carousel, because there's a carousel every round, the first carousel, everybody gets unleashed at once. And you have to kind of jockey, and you're going to get to choose one of these champions by walking into them and grabbing them. And you're going to get that champion and that item, right? But only one person gets it, and then they take them away. So everyone's going to see how these people are moving out. They're going to jockey around it and try to get in and get the item they want. So this is the first carousel. Excuse me. In future carousels, whoever's in last, the bottom two are going to go first and get first choice, and then the next two, and then the next two, and then the next two. So having more health is good, but you're going to get last choice on the items. Whereas if you have lower health, you're in more danger of losing the game, but you're going to get first choice on the items and the champions. Okay? So this is what an early board looks like. This is after the first carousel. So we'll go over this in detail, but you can see this is 1-2. So 1-1 was the carousel. This is the first round against two computer. Remember we talked about PvE rounds? This is a PvE round where we're fighting two little minions. Any champion, as long as you have a champion out, will be able to defeat these. Doesn't matter. Okay? So she's going to kill them, and you're going to have a chance to get gold or items from them. Then it's going to go to 2-2, or 1-2. Sorry, 1-3. And another PvE round gets a little harder. 1-4 gets a little harder. Okay? Here's what happens then. So on the left, I've put out the first 7 rounds, which is pretty far. You're not usually going to get into the 7th or like go past the 7th. Rarely happens. So you can see how the first round is all PvP or PvE rounds after the carousel. After you do these 3 and you've started to build a team a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, and got some items, you get to fight people. So then every round looks the same. You get 3 fights against another person. Then you have a carousel where it goes on order of who's in first and who's in last, right? We go last and up, 2 at a time. Then you get 2 more fights against a person. And then you get a fight against a PvE round that's going to give you items and things. Okay? And each of these rounds will look a little different. That's why they have different symbols. And you'll learn about those as you go. We're not going to cover them all here. Okay? But you can see how each round looks the same. So on the right here, I just have 2 examples of different board states. So this one, we're in 2-6. Hopefully you can see that. We're in the last round before we fight the PvE. And you can just see how I have 4 champions on the board. I'm level 4. I bought some champions, right? Sitting on 19 gold. So that kind of thing. Here, we're much later, 6-3. There's only 3 people left alive, right? I have 8 champions on the board. Quite a few items on them. We're level 8. I've bought a few things. I have 51 gold. So the game has progressed a lot faster, right? So that's a lot of information to get thrown at you. And I wanted to go over some key concepts that are the basic concepts, not strategy, just basic concepts for how to play the game. Economy is the most important thing to learn as a beginner player. So every 10 gold you have, you're going to earn what's called interest gold. So if we look at this picture, this is what shows up when you hover over your gold total on your board. It's going to tell you your total income for the next round. Your passive income, plus 5. So you just get 5 gold, because at that point, it might be less earlier in the game. It is less earlier in the game. I think on level 1-1, you get 2 gold. Your interest, which is max of 5. So for every 10 gold you have, you get 1 gold interest. So if you have 50 gold in your bank that you're not using, you're just sitting on there holding it, you would get 5 extra interest. So a lot of people will try to get to 50 gold and then use the interest and the extra money above 50 gold to level up and to buy champions and that kind of thing. And then your win-loss streak. So for every, I believe it's 3 wins or losses and above, you go on, you start to get money for going on a streak. So there's all sorts of strategies around that. But just so you know, you can get money from winning or losing a bunch of times in a row. So your team comp. So this is an example of a team comp. So remember we talked about traits, classes, and origins. You want to find ones that synergize well. So this player has managed to get Moonlight to 5, which is the max. At the same time, they've got Brawler to 4, Hunter to 3, and Elderwood to 3. So they have all these bonuses active. Okay, so building a team that has multiple bonuses active and focusing on which bonuses you want to try to get is what TFT is all about. You're not trying to just throw random champions on the board. You're trying to build a team. Scouting. Scouting means to look at what your opponents are doing. So on the right side of your board, you can see this frame, right, that tells people how they're doing, where people's healths are. You can see their names. By clicking on any player portrait, you would then be able to see their screen and see what their board looks like, what their traits are, what items they have, what they have on their bench. You wouldn't be able to see their shop. You get a rough estimate of how much gold they have based on the little gold pop-ups on the side. Okay, so you can see what they're trying to do. So if every player is trying to go for Moonlight, it's not going to work. And we'll go over why. Let's do that now, actually. So if we go back and we look at the champions, here we go. Every player can't go for the same item because of this simple little thing. 1-cost champions have 29 total in what is called the champion pool. So when you're looking in your shop, all the options there come from a pool of champions. There's only 29 1-cost. So if everyone's trying to go for the exact same build, they're going to run out of champions and they just won't be able to show up. And you can see as they go higher up in cost, there's less and less of them. And remember, it takes 9 champions of the same to make a 3-star. So you can see 5-cost champions, there's only 10 for the whole game. Right? So for somebody to get a 3-star, let's say Lee Sin here, for example, who's a 5-cost champion, they would need to buy 9 of the 10 Lee Sins that are available total. So really hard to do. So multiple players really can't go for the same team too much. You can a little bit, but it becomes harder and harder. If nobody's going for what you're going for, it's way easier, which is why scouting is so important. Board placement. Last thing we're going to talk about. You remember, on your board, you have 4 rows to place your champions in. And you want to think about that when you're placing your board. And much like any other game, you want your tanky character, your more health, maybe an ability that makes them stronger, tankier items in the front. You want them to absorb the damage, while your squishy damage dealers are kept in the back. That's almost always going to be the same. There is a lot of strategy around how you place your champions out, and a lot of strategy around what's going on in the game for that. But the basics are tanks in the front, damage dealers in the back. Okay? So, that's the basics of TFT. It's a lot. It's going to sound like a lot. Once you start playing, it's a lot easier to start to get to terms with it, or you start watching a video, it'll be easier to get to terms with it. But just to understand the basic building blocks and how they work is really nice, because then you can watch a video and say, oh, I know how that works. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to build a team comp. They're being careful of their economy and trying to hit that 10 gold threshold so that they get bonus gold, right? Oh, they're going to try to level so that they get stronger champions because they leveled up and now they have a better chance of getting stronger champions, right? So there's lots of more detail and nitty-gritty detail, but these key kind of building blocks are what go into the game. So going forward, I'm going to be posting some TFT videos, and I'm actually going to post one tomorrow where we play a pretty good game. And you'll be able to see, and I'll point out a little bit in the beginning. I actually filmed it before this video, but I do point out a little bit in the beginning about how, what I'm doing and what I'm looking for and how some of the game system works. But it's fast because you only have so much time in each round. There's no pause button. You have to play because everyone's playing at the same time. So being able to understand before helps you to be able to keep up in the real time of the game when it's going to be a little bit of a time clock to get going. So if you have any questions, comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. Keep an eye out for that video tomorrow and you'll be able to see how this all plays out in a game. It's a good game. I won't spoil it, but it goes pretty well. And keep an eye on for future TFT content and give it a chance. If you ever want to play it, it's free to play. It doesn't cost anything. It's through Riot Games. You can download it. It's a lot of fun. And there's actually a mobile version of it where you can play it on your phone as well. So hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a little bit of a better understanding of TFT and how it works and some of the core systems before it. All right. Take care. Have a great one. See you in the next video.